Okay, what are you saying, people? Hope you're all doing well and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen of the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video, guys, breaking down through each pair, what happened during this week and potentially what could happen during next week as well. So hope you do enjoy the video, but with all that said, guys, let's get straight into it. Okay, so up first we've got Euro USD. So Euro USD coming into the week, I did have a bullish bias for the pair, expecting a move to the upside if a certain level was respected, which was. I did say if we do see the whole reverse, I'm expecting price to come back into this area at 1.15200, retest that daily support, which will now be term resistance, which we never got the retest of. So I can still see price coming there, but obviously we're really lacking that momentum needed to get us to that level and see that reversal. So potentially we could still be looking at a bearish market here, simply just having a slightly deeper retracement and getting ready to turn bearish again. So unless we don't see very strong momentum coming into the markets next week, we're more than likely to roll back down to 1.12 for Euro USD, maybe even further. The only way I'll potentially look for buys is if we can break through this price swing high, which we failed to break through this week, and then we can look for buys on the retest of that, and then potentially a push into that daily area there, and we can just look for the break and retest, trade opportunity, and you can take profit maybe around this area here, because that is a very strong level of supply. Price might come into that area and reject and come back to your entry price. So can look taking partials in there, or just look to target that area completely at 1.14500, or if you're looking for that daily target at 1.15300, you know, that will be looking very, very attractive as well if we can get the break and retest of that. But if not, price does look like it potentially might collapse to the downside again. We do have a bit of a bearish trend here forming on the lower time frames here. You can see first, second, third test here, and it does look like we've broken out that kind of mini range there on the 4H. So if we do stay below this level here and stay below that trend line, we're more than likely to roll back over and come back to these lows and just continue that overall bearish trend that the market is still, you know, very, very much in. So can be looking for a trade opportunity, something like that. If you get another retest of that, stay below that level at 1.13100, stay below that trend line, we'll be looking for sales to take this one lower. But if you do see an impulsive break of that trend line and a break of that strong level there, we could be looking at those continuations to take price higher. So overall, looking for sales to start the week if we can hold to 1.13100, looking for sales on the retest of that trend line. If not, we just break through, and we break through those highs, we'll look for the break and retest of 1.13700 to take that back into 1.53 all the way up there. Okay, so now I'm going to take a look at USD JPY. So USD JPY, we did see some downside this week. Again, looking for selling opportunities on the break and retest of this level here. As you can see, price did sell off quite nicely there. Again, a little bit choppy, but I'm still expecting price to drop to the downside here. Looking at the higher time frame, price action, you can see on the weekly here, price is still at a very, very key level, key psychological level as well, 114. And price is struggling to break through this really nice bearish shooting star candlestick pattern a couple of weeks ago. I'm still expecting price to come down and start to maybe retrace some of that bullish price action we've seen on the weekly time frame. So I'm looking at price coming to the downside here. We've broken out of this really strong support here on the left. You can see how the false break there, price closed straight back below, and now we're holding there with nice wicks to the upside. So I'm expecting USD JPY to see some downside now, back down into 112, which is this key level here. So looking at that kind of scope there from 113 500-ish back down to 111, actually no, 112, sorry, keep it nice and simple there. So looking from 113 500 back down to 112, you potentially could go further. If we do break through that, you know, we'll be expecting a push into this level, but again, I'm not too sure price will do that within 1 week. So looking for a push to 112 for the week. Again, we could also look for the break and retest of this low here, probably the safer option. But yeah, like I said, my bias is still very much to the downside, looking at a push into 112. So I'm looking at two opportunities, either price, because it's still holding onto the support here, as you can see on the left here, wick, so it's still holding onto that support. So it'd be nice to see one more push to the upside, and then we can look for shorts up there and shorts back down, or we can look for the break and retest of that level there, and a push down, just keeping it simple, knowing which levels we want to be shorting at and which level we expect price action to respect, and looking to get short at those levels. So again, risk reward would be better taking from up there, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. Price might just go and break through that. Again, a lot of momentum there, and that candle, I think we did have NFP on Friday, so did cause quite an aggressive reaction there on USD JPY. So if we do go and end up breaking through that support, just look for the retest, drop the low time frames to the 4H, we drop hourly, 30-minute, you know, maximize that risk to reward, and get short from this level, which is 112.800. So breaking retest of 112.800, get short back into 112, or from up there at 113.400. So that's the plan for the week for USDJPY. Only looking for sells and targets back down at 112. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to USD CAD. So USD CAD is still pushing on in this bullish trend here, still creating those higher highs and higher lows. Yeah, didn't really get any reversal signs this week. I did say to you guys that on the stream, to look for the reversal, we do need to see a break of that significant low at 1.27300. If we can break below that level, we'll be looking for the retest and the reversal, but price stayed above and it's still making this higher highs and higher lows. So overall, USD CAD is still bullish. We are coming into a key level of resistance here. You can see this level actually did start this massive bearish trend to the downside for USD CAD. So this level is quite significant, coming into 1.28500. If we do find resistance here, potentially could see some downside for USD CAD, maybe 50% of that move potentially. But it does look like price is trying to push to the upside and create some higher highs, looking at the higher time frames. I do think in the long term, USD CAD will probably take out this wick here eventually. So do have to keep that in mind. If we don't see any signs of reversal, USD CAD probably will continue to the upside and most likely take out this wick here at 1.29500. So coming into that level, now we can look for selling opportunities, but two things need to happen. We need to see price kind of break through this area here, and then potentially break through that area there as well, and we can look for sells and take that further to the downside. I think that's probably the only way I'll look for sells, because price is still very bullish here, and looking to short this, you know, is very risky. So if that does happen, risk to reward does look healthy, because we could be seeing a nice reversal happen from that level. You know, there's just some of the areas you can look to target, you know, first TP, second, third, you know, just see how far price can drop, taking profit at those levels. But if price does stay bullish, we most likely will just see a bounce from that trend line and price will push on. So on the low time frames, you can look for long opportunities there. It is a little bit choppy, so I probably won't look for those long opportunities. But if price is bouncing, you know, following the trend, you can look for long opportunities and target that wick up at 1.29500. So if you're looking for sells, do wait for a break of this significant low at 1.27300. And then you can look for your short opportunities on the retest of that, because at that point we've taken out the price swing low, putting in a lower high, and we can see some nice downside. But like I said, price is still bullish. We need to see a break of the trend line, break of the support before we can get short. But if we do, we could see some nice downside for that, for this pair. So that's what the plan is for USD CAD. Looking for sells if we can get below these levels. If not, price will probably continue. Sorry to interrupt the video, guys, but if you are enjoying the content and you find it useful, make sure you go hit the subscribe button down below, and also make sure you drop a like as well. It really does help the channel out. But anyway, back to the video. Okay, so euro pound, as you can see, quite a bullish week. Price continued to the upside. Coming into the week, we were looking for buys for this pair. We were looking for the break and retest of this level. We had the break the week before, so this week we were looking for the retest of this, 4 continuations back up into this zone. As you can see here, we did see a push into that zone. However, we didn't quite have the retest there. Price came about halfway, found support, and then pushed on. So we did see that move to the upside, and we actually did see a break of that level just before the market closed. So we are still looking quite bullish for euro pound. We still do have quite a bearish market overall. You can see the low lows and lower highs, so potentially we could still fall over to the downside, but we do need to see price break back below that area. So if you're looking to short the market, I do want to see the market get back below this area. So this could just be a false break, start to respect that as resistance, and then we could see some nice downside for this pair. And again, targets would be at that recent support. Well, recent resistance wasn't quite support, we didn't come and test it, but targets will be all the way down there. So that's primarily what I'll be looking for. Euro pound, also a nice break of that trend line would be nice. That trend line will be coming as resistance as well, so that could be a nice confluence there. But overall, looking for a move to the downside. And if we don't, and price hugs that as support and struggles to break back below, and we just see this kind of 4H trend continue, then the buyers will be looking good, going the opposite way on the break and retest of that level, and just seeing a completion of that range of about 60-70 pips there to the upside. So overall, looking for buys and sells this week for Euro pound, depending how price reacts with that level. Looking for buys if we break and retest 0.85 to 40. But if we do break below, break through that trend line, retest, we'll look for sales from 2.85 to 40 back down to 2.84 to 80. So that's the plan for next week for Euro pound. Just play off that level, see what price does. It starts breaking to the downside, we'll probably see a swing back down to those lows. But if it continues that momentum and we put some wicks into this level, buyers will be looking good back up to highs at 0.85880. Okay, so now I'm going to take a look at AUD USD. So AUD USD continued to the downside this week. I did say we do expect to see a push into this weekly support during my analysis last week. Really key area of support at 0.7, really strong psychological level as well. So as you can see, this gave us this massive move to the upside, and we were expecting prices to fill that gap back into this area. So in fact, AUD did that quite aggressively on Friday. Again, NFP did give it a kick to the downside, but price is looking very bearish, and with that momentum we potentially could actually break through this level and potentially go further as well. So if price does go further, then I will be expecting to see a push into 0.69, the next psychological level below 0.7. But if we do see a bounce from this, then we can see potentially a push back into this major support, which we did see a nice break and retest. As you see a break with that shooting star candle, the retest with that kind of indecision candle there, and then we saw the continuation there. So if we do hold onto this level, there can be some potential buys for AUD/USD, but again, we need a lot more development. I mean, I'm doing this on the weekend, and there's not enough development for me to say that yes, we're going to bounce from this level and see some nice buying opportunities, because we're still looking very bearish here, and we could easily break through. And if that's the case, we can use that as resistance, and on the retest look for sales and take that lower. So it just depends what price is going to do. Right now it's looking bearish, and with that momentum we could easily get the break and continuation. We'll be looking at a push into 0.69, but if we do hold this as support, then you can be looking for buys. But guys, definitely do wait for some extra development coming in before you do look for buys at this zone. It is a very key level, but we don't have enough evidence yet that price action is going to actually respect that level. So we'll keep my eye out for this one throughout the week, see if we can get some nice price action kind of midweek for this one. Look for some buys. If not, look for the continuation, break, retest back down to 0.69 for next week. Okay, now we're going to move on to NZD CAD. So NZD CAD, we're expecting a move to the downside this week. I did say hopefully we can get a retest of this level. I did say there might be a chance that price will find resistance just below it, which in fact it did, and then sell off, but was looking for continuation to the downside, because it does look like price is putting here another major lower high, and I'm expecting a lower low past this point here probably next week, especially if that momentum does continue. So I'm expecting NZD CAD to continue to the downside back into that wick there, probably spike through it into 0.86. Two opportunities I'm looking at for NZD CAD: a break and retest of this key level of support. You can see price is still holding on to it right now, so we do need to see a break and retest for our entry for this one, and right now price is still holding it. So if that momentum can leak to the downside, break through that level, and we can look for a nice break and retest of that, which is at 0.86500. But if we do find support here and price does push to the upside, we'll still look for sales back down to that area. We're simply at a break and retest of this area here. You can see price was moving sideways on top of that level, struggling to break through. Got a nice break, got the retest there. So if we do pull back into that same level, we'll still be looking for our selling opportunities. And again, a better risk to reward as well. And actually, if price does move up there, we do have a really nice potential head and shoulders pattern playing out there, with the left shoulder being here, the head, and the right shoulder over there, and then we're looking for price to sell off to the downside. So again, I'm not expecting price to make that move, but it does, we will look to sell it back down. Most likely we'll get the break and retest of that level. Again, you can drop to the lower time frames, hourly, 30-minute, 50-minute, to maximize your risk to reward on that. But we do have a very high probability chance that price will fall to 0.86200 and probably spike through it as well. So looking for sales this week for NZD CAD back down to 0.86200. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to pound NZD. So pound NZD, as you can see, still looking bullish there. Slight retracement, but price is still looking like it's continuing. You see that in the 4H. Slight retracement, but price is still very much in that bullish trend. Again, last week I did say we're looking for sales at this zone here, which price still hasn't reached yet. So coming into the week, I think we can see continuations back up into this area. And if you can see price start to reject 1.96500, we'll be looking for selling opportunities back down again. We do have potentially a really nice head and shoulders or inverse head and shoulders pattern forming here, with the left, the head, and potentially the right. If you do see a nice reaction from that level back into that zone, and potentially price could go on a reversal and a continuation to the upside. So looking to capitalize on a push of this resistance here. You can see this resistance here gave us this massive move to the downside, so this level is very, very important. So we'll be looking at sales at 1.96500 back down into that area. So coming onto the 4H, again, we'll be looking at price action. We are losing momentum to the upside. You can see the bearish candles coming in very, very choppy. So it's a sign that the bulls are taking profit and the bears could be stepping in at that level. So hopefully you can see price just continue to the upside a little bit more, come into 1.96500, and then from there, again, we'll be monitoring price action. But from there, essentially, we'll be looking for sales back down into 1.93600. Again, there is a chance that we might not do a perfect head and shoulders and come back into that level. We might push into this support here, which is slightly higher up, and then reverse. So do have to take into account that price might respect that level, but essentially we'll target here, and if we start doing reversing, probably look to exit a trade at that level, which is 1.94 300. So that's the plan for next week. Looking for sales. The only way I'll look for buys if price does break above that, but again, price does need to retrace. So looking for primarily sales for pound NZD coming into the week back down to 1.93600. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at CAD JPY. So CAD JPY, as you can see, still looking bearish. We were talking about a push back into this level here around the 88 mark. As you can see, price has tested that quite well. We could see a bounce from this level if price starts to respect it. So far, we don't really have much indication there that price is holding on to that level. Had some nice rejection there early in the week, but didn't really see much momentum. Then we had NFP, which just took us right back down to that same level. So if we can continue to reject that level, yes, potentially there could be some buys, slightly more aggressive because the trend is to the downside. Still, you can still see the lower lows and lower highs there. So taking any longs from this level is definitely more riskier than I would like it to be. So if we do actually go and break through the level, where do I expect price to go? Probably into this area here, where price has recently really liked to come and test around the 85,500 levels. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 times price test that level and really failed to break through. Here we had a break, but it turned out to be false. So if you do get below this level here, I think price would just end up just completing the retracement of this move all the way back down to where it came from. So if you do break through 80, 87, 800 and stay below it, so not a false break, if you can break, retest on the daily and stay below, I do think the market would just fill that gap into the downside, which is around 200 pips. So a lot of downside for CAD JPY. So if we do respect this as support, And yes, you can look for longs here. Potentially, I think the best bet to go long on this one would be waiting for a break of that lower high and then getting long on the retest of that. So break of the trend line, break of the lower high, and getting it on the longs there. And you can take this to the upside. We do have this price support here, which we broke through. Never got the retest, so that could be a nice place to look to target. So there's kind of two ideas there if you're looking to go long. We need a little bit more development here to go long here. But yeah, the safest bet is definitely waiting for the break of the trend line, break of the resistance, and then using that as support to continue further. But if you do break to the downside and just see that momentum continue, then we'll be looking for a break and retest of that zone there around 87, 800. Maybe a test of that trend line as well, adding to the confluence, and just looking for continuations to 85, 500. And that's why I do think price is headed for CAD JPY. So look what happens at that level. If we do bounce, you can look to go long or wait for further confirmation and break of that high, or if you just go straight and break through and you just see that, you know, higher time frame momentum, the daily and the weekly, just break us through that level, then we'll be looking for the retest and seeing price continue a lot further back down to 85, 500 for next week. Okay, so now we've got pound USD. So pound USD still looking bearish here. We were looking for price to either have a break and retest of this area here on the left at 1.33600, either retest it and continue down, or break above it and continue back to the upside at 1.35, which would be this level. You can see price all week tried to break through, failed to do so, and eventually did see that momentum pick up again and fall to the downside again. News did help with that move, but price is looking quite bearish now for pound USD, especially with that push there breaking through this support. So I can see price continuing further to the downside. I did say if we do stay below this, we are likely to go and test 1.32. I know we did test it off the back of some news, but you know, we did see that happen. I think we can potentially push even further back down to 1.31, especially if Euro USD does collapse as well. Most likely pound USD will continue further. So overall, pound USD still looking bearish. If we do stay below this support here and below this trend line, we probably will see price continue further. So you can be looking at sales on the break and retest of that level there for the continuation lower back down to the bottom of this wick here, just to fill that range, and then potentially 1.31. The only way I would look for buys if price was to break above that key level there, so that lower low there, and this retest, we have to break above that level for me to be looking for buys for pounds, just because things are so bearish right now. And price is really struggling to turn bullish. So yeah, looking for sells for pound USD. If we do push back into this level here, you can look for sells as well, but if you do get above it, we'll be looking for buys. So that's really what I'm looking for pound USD. Some retracement to take this back up, retest that level, retest the trend line as well. And if we can respect those areas, we'll be looking for continuation back down to 1.31. But if we do push back above this level here, I will flip my bias to bullish again and look for a push into 1.35 up there. And now we're going to see what's happening with pound CAD. So pound CAD, not too much from this pair this week. Was expecting price to go and break through this resistance here, but we failed to do so, put some wicks into that area, and price struggled to break through that resistance. So overall, if I drop to the 4H, you can see pound CAD is a little bit choppy now with that rejection there, and it does look like price overall is kind of just moving sideways, consolidating there. So pound CAD, I do have two kind of ideas for this pair. I can see price potentially coming right back down to these lows here, because if we do zoom out a little bit, it does look like price may just be looking to continue that overall bearish trend, and this here could just be price retracing. So if I do jump to the daily, you can see the overall trend is still bearish. This could here just be slightly deeper retracement for price to turn bearish again and see that continuation. The only way we can look for the reversal, really, if price does break through this resistance and we get a nice break and retest, then price could go a lot further. So that's what I'm expecting. Well, that's the kind of idea that I have for pound CAD. If we do break underneath this trend line and underneath the support of the consolidation, we'll be looking for that next lower high, either at the retest of the trend line or retest of that support, and then a continuation lower. So that's what I do have in plan for pound CAD, continuations back down into those lows. But if we do turn bullish, and break through the consolidation to the upside and break for that key level, then we can be looking for that break and retest to go long, and I will be looking for a push into 1.3 1.72, which is also the resistance here as well for those wicks. So if we do look bullish, we'll break above that. We'll look for the break and retest of 1.70780. If not, we'll look for the break and retest of the low and continuations back down to 1.67300. So that's the plan for pound CAD for next week. Okay, so next we've got pound JPY. So pound JPY looking very bearish here. We were looking for a push back down into these lows here for pound JPY, and as you can see, we actually smashed through that level. So pound JPY still looking bearish. I do think we can actually go take out this wick here on the left at 148.472. I think we can go and take out that wick, especially with the momentum we're seeing here on the daily. Going to the weekly time frame, you can see that is very bearish, and we do have quite a high probability price will make that trip down, take out that wick, maybe see some upside after that. There will be a lot of liquidity below that low there, so potentially could see price continue a lot further. Again, we do have a little bit of a channel here with that trend line there, so if price does retrace back into that level, we can actually see price retrace from another lower high and then sell off again. So potentially there could be some nice short-term sells, intraday sells there for pound JPY. If not, we break through the trend line and also break through that price swing high, then we can look for buying opportunities to take this one further to the upside. And we do have a really nice target over here, really nice support, which price failed to get the retest of at 152,500. So I would only look for a long opportunity if this happens, just because the market is so bearish. Looking at the weekly, looking at the daily, momentum is definitely with the bears. So looking to take the reversal is definitely more of an aggressive approach, especially when the market is as bearish it is on the higher time frames. So we'll wait for a push past that trend line and that resistance to confirm to us that the momentum has shifted and that structure has shifted, and we can go long back up to 152,500. If not, price will most likely fall over to the downside again. If not, that trend line back at that resistance back down to 148,500. Okay, so now we move on to gold. So gold, we had a bit more downside movement this week. Price failed to hold this bullish trend line here, so connect those recent lows. So you got first, second, third test there. Price actually broke through the trend line, and so far it's just about holding as resistance. Not the most convincing break, but price is respecting price support time resistance there. Could roll over, but because again, like I said, it's not the most convincing break. If we do push back above, we could be seeing that upside happen, and this just be a false break of the trend line. So going on to the lower time frames, you can see the support there a little bit more clearly on the 4H. Price holding that support 1, 2, 3, 4, bit of a false break by the side. So if we do hold this as resistance, there would be some nice selling opportunities here for gold to take that further, breaking through the trend line, breaking through the support term resistance. Now we could be looking at continuations, and I was looking for a push into the bottom of this wick there. So that'll be targets for next week. If not, and we do see the daily push back above the trend line and break back above that resistance, we can look to go long, actually using that same area as support. All the trend line depends where the market finds support, whether it's respecting the trend line or respecting that support. We can look for longs and take that further. Again, targets just to be on the safe side will probably be this resistance here. We could potentially go further, but I'm just going to look to target that high there, because that well could reject price against us. So I'm looking for either a break and continuation of that level, so a break back above, close above that daily resistance on the daily trend line, on the daily chart, and we can look for that continuation back up into those highs at 1810. If not, and the market holds this level, holds the trend line as resistance, we'll probably fall over and just continue with this bearish trend back down to 1759. So if we do hold 1783 as resistance, looking at sells, break above, looking at a push back up to 1810 for gold for next week. Okay, so now we've got Bitcoin. So Bitcoin recently big drop to the downside there. As you can see, price was still respecting some intraday trend lines and failed to push bullish. Was looking for a push back down into this zone here, that resistance there, and support, which we didn't quite do last week. You can see we just missed that level, so I did say we might retrace back into that level. As you can see, we actually blown straight through that. So price is looking quite bearish, especially with that push. And normally after we do see big spikes like this, we normally do expect price to eventually go and fill that wick. So Drop onto the 4H, I think we might see some retracement, maybe. Oh, that's not the tool I wanted. We might see some retracement, maybe a retest even of that level up there at 53k. But I do think we'll go and fill this wick here to the downside on the daily chart, which is this level here. I think we will push to the downside, fill the wick, and go and test this price swing low of the market. So looking for sells for Bitcoin, we might push up, so some intraday buys might be looking good, but I don't think if you're looking to buy Bitcoin long term, I don't think we've quite got the confirmations yet to look to buy Bitcoin. If it does break through 53k, start holding that support, that could be a nice long opportunity, but right here we might actually go and fill that wick here and continue back down to that support. So that's what I'm expecting for Bitcoin. As long as we stay below 53k, I'm expecting price to go and fill that wick there on the daily and push back down to 41k. So I'm expecting more downside for Bitcoin. As long as we stay below 53k, get above that, you can look for buys, and probably at that point after this big blowout to the downside, we most likely will be pushing back to highs, which is around 69k. So that's what I'm expecting for Bitcoin. Stay below 53k, I think we'll push into 41, break above. I think Bitcoin will probably roll back over to highs. Okay guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed that and found that useful. Like always guys, if you did enjoy it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, does really help the channel out. If you have any questions, agree or disagree with my analysis, drop a comment down below and I'll make sure I get back to you. But anyway guys, I hope you did enjoy the video. Have a great weekend and I'll catch you guys next week.